This was back in the year Tafshin Lamed Daled, which corresponds to the year 5734, 1974. I had the great zchus to come to the Rebbe with my father in honor of Chof. Chof is the Yortzeit of Reb Levi Yitzchak, the Rebbe's father. That year marked 30 years since the passing of the Rebbe's father. The Rebbe's father passed away in the year Tafshin Daled in 1944, and this was 30 years later. We came to the Rebbe for Chof. Chof that year was on a Thursday, and then there was a big Fabrengen also on Shabbos, which we'll talk about soon. And then Monday on Chof Daled, we were supposed to go back to Italy. So the flights to Europe usually leave in the evening. So we always come to Mincha to daven with the Rebbe, and then we go off to the airport. The Rebbe used to daven Mincha at 3:15 in the afternoon, so we came to Mincha. That Mincha was a little bit special, because in those years the Rebbe always used to daven upstairs in the small shul in 770. He would daven downstairs only on Shabbos or Yom Tov, or if he had to daven for the Yomid. But otherwise the Rebbe would always daven upstairs. That day, that Monday, there were the camps. Some camps came to daven with the Rebbe, so in honor of that, the Rebbe davened Mincha downstairs. It was a very interesting Mincha. At the end of Mincha, the Rebbe walked out from the shul, and behind him walked the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Groner, and we were standing on the side, and Rabbi Groner pointed to us like this. That meant that the Rebbe wants to see us near his room in what's called Gan Eden Atachten, in front of the Rebbe's room. So obviously we went right away upstairs. The Rebbe had already gotten into his room, so we were standing there and waiting for the Rebbe to come out. And we also noticed that Rabbi Pinson from Tunis, the Rebbe's shliach to Tunis, was also there in Gan Eden Atachten. A few minutes later, the Rebbe came out from his room. He had 2 bottles of mashke, of vodka, and a few dollar bills under his arm, like this. The Rebbe came out. He gave Rabbi Pinson a bottle of mashke, and he told him, I wasn't really listening because the Rebbe wasn't talking to me. He said basically something about making fabrengens in different places or so on. Then the Rebbe turned to my father and he gave him a bottle of mashke, and he also told him to make fabrengens in different places. Then the Rebbe pulled out from under his arm the dollars. The Rebbe had $10 bills and single dollar bills. The Rebbe took 3 $10 bills, gave it to Rabbi Pinson, and he said, "Das is lekaved shnas hashloshim." This is for the 30 years. It was 30 years from the Yortzeit of his father. Then the Rebbe took 3 $10 bills, and he gave it to my father as shnas hashloshim. Then the Rebbe took 3 single dollars. I was a young kid then. I was right after Bar Mitzvah. These are the $3 that the Rebbe gave me then, and the Rebbe told me, "Das is for shnas hashloshim." And then the Rebbe turned to my father, I'll never forget it, with a broad smile, and the Rebbe said, "Ayasher koyach Farn Kumen Afen Yortzeit." Thank you for coming to it for the Yortzeit. On that Shabbos, which was 30 years from the Rebbe's father's Yortzeit, the Rebbe said that he would like that all those who saw my father, especially in the later years, and they were meshamish my father, they served my father, if they could please come up and say l'chaim together with me. And of course, the main ones who were there by the Fabrengen were members of the famous Lubavitch Araskin family, Reb Yankov Yosef with his children, Reb David, Reb Leibel. Reb Leibel happened to be a personal friend of my father because they grew up together over there in Alma Ata, where Reb Levi Yitzchak was exiled. But my father never saw Reb Levi Yitzchak. He was in Alma Ata, but his father was afraid to take him. Those days to deal with Ashnerson meant you're going straight to jail in Russia. So my father never happened to see Reb Levi Yitzchak. I'm just going to pause for a moment, go back to that Fabrengen. And the Rebbe, as he gave l'chaim to the Raskin family and the other people, he turns looking towards my father's place at the Fabrengen. My father stood over there on the left-hand side. And my father didn't say anything. My father was very close to the Rebbe Tzechana, as I'll discuss in a moment. And the Rebbe sent, I believe it was the Reb David Raskin, to ask my father if he was ever meshamish Reb Levi Yitzchak. And my father, of course, didn't answer. Then the Rebbe sent Reb David Rask and asked him, "Efshar atrangi gosna glaz tea." Maybe he poured a cup of tea. My father didn't answer, and the Rebbe said, "Fun deswegen, still let him say lechaim." We assume that is because right after my grandfather did see Reb Levi Yitzchak, but my father, he was a little boy, he didn't. And after Reb Levi Yitzchak passed away, which is in the summertime in Av, the winter came and she needed wood. So my grandfather told my father and my aunt, his older sister, my father's older sister, that they should go and bring wood to the Rebbe Tzanchana, the Rebbe's mother, knock on the door and run away. So what happened was she opened the door and she found wood. And this happened a few times. And my father, what he used to do is, he used to go to the offices of the Russian generals over there, and he was a little kid, so he would steal the wood from them and used to bring it there. One time the Rebbe Tzachana saw who that was, and this became a very friendship between the two families. It's a long story, we're not going to go through all the details, but then later when the Rebbe Tzanchana got to Moscow, when they were supposed to smuggle through the borders, this was later already in 1946, the famous time that all the Chassidim left as Polish citizens and had to go with false passports. It's a long story. Bottom line, the Rebbe Tzanchana did not want to leave Russia. My two aunts, my father's sisters, my Muma Hadassah and Muma Yocheved, Mama Hadassah Perman and Muma Yocheved the Zalmanov, these two aunts of mine, they were still girls at the time, they weren't married yet, but they were very, very much involved in the whole procedure. And whoever was in charge then to send the people, sent them to the Rebbe Tzachana because that they should persuade her. And when they came up the stairs to come to the Rebbe Tzachana's apartment, where she was staying, they heard voices how she was saying, "No, I don't want to go, I don't want to go." And then when these two girls came up and they persuaded her, she said, "Yeah, mit zei will ich gehen, with them I will go." And she actually left Russia. So the two families became very close. Then years later, in the 50s, in late 50s, when my father came to 770 to learn, so he would go and visit the Rebbe Tzanchana here in Crown Heights, where she lived in different apartments, and later she lived in 1418 President Street.